Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our last Sunday service of the month. It's hard to believe that February is already coming to an end. I hope this past month has been a good one to you. To me, February was a better month compared to January. I was going to say we had much needed rain, but I know some areas in Los Angeles were affected by the rain again. So I guess it's not completely a good thing. And then we also have been having some warm, sunny days, which I've been very appreciated for. Recently, I was asked why we don't focus on the concept of reincarnation in Jodo Shinshu. And this person isn't religious or doesn't have much knowledge of Buddhism. I feel like this wasn't a topic mentioned frequently, even when I was in school either. I think it's because we don't talk about the afterlife so much, and instead we focus on the lives we are currently living as human beings. So the only answer I could give at that moment was that reincarnation refers to the continuous cycle of rebirth in Saha, the world we live in, which is filled with illusions and suffering. In Jodo Shinshu, we entrust ourselves to Amida Buddha's boundless compassion, which leads us beyond this cycle of suffering. And then he asks, so Amida Buddha is like a god? And I answered, no, not quite. And then he said, okay, well, you have to explain it to me like you do to a 5-year-old. So today's my talk is my attempt trying to explain or my thoughts why we don't focus on reincarnation part. First of all, I want to clarify that the idea of reincarnation comes from ancient Indian philosophies like Hinduism and Brahmanism. They believe our lives aren't just one time, but part of a cycle of suffering and illusions called samsara. So reincarnation isn't something that's seen as positive in Buddhism. In Buddhism, it was taught that we keep being reborn in 6 different realms: hell, hungry ghosts, animals, fighting demons, human beings, and heavenly beings. But only in that human and heavenly realms we can meet and understand the Dharma, Buddhist teachings. This is something we also talk about in Jodo Shinshu. We reflect on what it means to be a human being and how precious it is to be able to hear the Dharma. Sometimes when I'm with the members at the temple, I forget that Dharma is for everyone, but not everyone gets to hear it in their lifetime. However, with the research on near-death experiences, some people started to think of death as a hope for transition, believing it's not the end, but a chance for endless growth. But this idea doesn't really match with Buddhist teachings, which focus on the reality of impermanence and the goal of breaking free from samsara. According to Professor Keiichi Miyamoto from Kokugakuin University in Tokyo, during the time of Siddhartha Gautama, who later became the historical Buddha, it was believed that the cause of reincarnation or the cycle of suffering comes from desires. These desires lead to both good and bad actions, known as karma, which accumulate as merit or sins. As a result, beings continue to be reborn, trapped in this cycle of suffering. Many people believe that if they could eliminate their desires, they could escape the cycle of suffering. As a result, practices like meditation and ascetic practices became popular. Gautama also practiced deep meditation, but he realized that as soon as he stopped, dissatisfaction and desires would return. He then engaged in extreme ascetic practices, including severe fasting. But while he learned to endure pain, it did not lead to true liberation from suffering. At this point, the god Siddhartha made an important discovery. He realized that the root cause of reincarnation is not simply desire, but something even deeper, an unconscious, uncontrollable instinct to cling to existence. In Buddhism, this is called the darkness of ignorance. It is this ignorance that gives rise to desire and keeps being trapped in the cycle of suffering. Shinran Shonin, who unintentionally founded Jodo Shinshu, referred to us as Bonbu, ordinary beings, filled with ignorance and blind passions. In Jodo Shinshu, we recognize that this ignorance is so deeply ingrained in us that we cannot overcome it through our own efforts alone. Amida Buddha is not a higher power who controls our fate or rewards or punishes us. Rather, Amida represents boundless wisdom and compassion that embraces all beings just as they are. Instead of striving to break free from suffering through our own effort, we awaken to the reality that we are already accepted and embraced by this great compassion. In Jodo Shinshu, the Pure Land is not a final destination or paradise, but the realm where we are awakened to enlightenment. It is the place where our ignorance and attachments are transformed, allowing us to see reality as it truly is. Because of this, reincarnation is not really our main concern in Jodo Shinshu. In Shoshinge, on page 26 of our service book, there is a verse that says, "Shitsu no zaiha umuken," translated as to destroy utterly one-sided views of being and non-being. In other words, it's about letting go of fixed ideas of existence and non-existence. This was something discovered by Nagarjuna, one of the 7 masters Shinran Shonin admired. He explained that the belief in existence is the attachment to things as permanent and unchanging. On the other hand, the belief in non-existence is the idea that everything completely disappears after death. Both are extreme views. Nagarjuna teaches that we should let go of both these ideas and simply see things as they truly are, instead of trying to force life into one category or another, whether it's existence or non-existence. But as long as we see things only in terms of life and death, we stay stuck in that way of thinking, dividing things into two. One of my teachers once told me that Pure Land Buddhism is the tradition that most directly faces the question of life and death. It teaches that through the assurance of enlightenment, we transcend the suffering of birth and death, moving beyond the cycle of samsara. So if I were to answer the question of reincarnation, I don't really have an answer. We can imagine and discuss it, but at the end of the day, we don't know what happens until we die. So why worry? As long as we keep focusing on the afterlife, we remain stuck in our limited understanding of life and death. As I was writing this talk, I found myself going down a bit of a rabbit hole, trying to understand the different traditions within Buddhism. Since moving to America, I've noticed that some Buddhist teachings can sometimes be interpreted in ways that sound similar to Western religions. And that's probably why Amida Buddha and the teaching of Jodo Shinshu are often mistaken as belief in higher power. And honestly, I'm still learning how to find the best way to deliver it all. So if you've ever had similar questions or concerns, I have an announcement to share. Next month, on March 16th, we'll be holding our spring Ohigan service. And we've invited Reverend Masuo Kodani, the former resident minister of Senshin Temple, as our guest speaker. There are flyers available in the foyer with more details, but Reverend Kodani will be speaking on the theme of Jodo Shinshu in America, problems in understanding Jodo Shinshu in English, in an open discussion format. So I encourage everyone to join and take part in the conversation if you had time. Thank you for joining this morning, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.